Rating the List, where we review, discuss, and reimagine popular movie lists objectively. We're your hosts. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad. And on this episode, we'll be exploring number 56 from AFI's 100 Years, 100 Passions, the 100 Greatest Love Stories of All Time.
Okay, and number 56 is The English Patient, released in 1996, directed by Anthony Minghella, starring Ralph Fiennes and Kristen Scott Thomas.
Okay, so the synopsis of this war drama is as follows. At the end of the Italian campaign of World War II, a French-Canadian nurse, Hannah, played by Juliette Binoche, gains permission to move into a bombed-out monastery to look after a critically burned Englishman who can't remember his name. His only possession is a book with notes, pictures, and mementos contained inside. They are soon joined by Kip, played by Naveen Andrews, a mine clearer from the British Indian Army, and another patient, David Caravaggio, played by Willem Dafoe, a Canadian intelligence officer with no thumbs after being tortured by the Germans. David questions the English patient, who gradually reveals his past through flashbacks. During these flashbacks, we learn the English patient is actually Hungarian cartographer Count Laszlo de Almasi, played by Ralph Fiennes, and was on a Royal Geographic Society archaeological survey in Egypt and Libya, which included Geoffrey and Catherine Clifton, played by Colin Firth and Kristen Scott Thomas. During the expedition, which includes the discovery of cave paintings, Almasi falls in love with Catherine. When they return to Cairo, they begin an affair that Catherine eventually ends abruptly for fear Geoffrey will find out. During the time these flashbacks are being told, Hannah and Kip begin a shy love affair, and though they are separated, vow to meet again after the war. David's motives for questioning Almasi are revealed. He believes Almasi is the one who provided maps to the Germans, allowing them to infiltrate Cairo. In the past, we find Almasi packing up base camp when Geoffrey's survey plane shows up. Instead of landing, he flies straight at Almasi and crashes. Geoffrey dies, and Catherine, who is his passenger, is badly injured in the apparent murder-suicide. Almasi takes her to the cave paintings with provisions and his book. He leaves her to find help, but is detained for being a suspected spy. He eventually makes his way to an oasis where his expedition mate Maddox has hidden his plane and is in control of the Germans. He exchanges maps for fuel and flies back for Catherine, who has died. He flies her body away and is shot down by the Germans and badly burned. After finishing his story, Almasi tells Hannah he's had enough and pushes several vials of morphine toward her. Though upset, she administers the lethal dose. As he drifts off, she reads him Catherine's last letter written while she was in the cave. The next morning, David returns with a friend who will drive them to Florence. Hannah holds Almasi's book tight as they ride away. Yeah, so I saw this one in the theaters in 1996 with, I was working in a video store at the time, and one of my co-workers was a real big movie fan as well. So we used to go to a lot of movies together, and wow, this movie's boring. It's really dull.
It's really boring. It's really dull. Not only is the story dull, visually it's dull. There's like all these muted, like, desert colors, but like her outfits match the desert background. It's just very bland.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, the really like biggest thing that stands out in terms of technical achievement is the editing on this movie. The editing is really, really well done.
Yeah.
It's done by Hollywood legend Walter Murch, who worked a lot on a lot of big movies in the 70s, especially for Francis Ford Coppola. But outside of that, man, this, like, everything is technically proficient. Mm-hmm. Like, the acting's fine, the directing's fine. It's just, there's nothing about this movie that's particularly interesting.
And also, like, you're supposed to buy that these two individuals are, like, totally passionate about each other, love each other, like this big love story. And it Chess doesn't. You know how you have friends to lovers scenarios, so or enemies to lovers scenarios. Like you got the enemy part, but they didn't show you where they transition to lovers. They just become lovers. So you're like, whoa.
And even more so with her, like you don't get any transition of why she falls for this guy.
No.
We don't see, like, a couple things we don't see. We don't see, like, any kind of reason why she would cheat on her husband. Like, it seems like a very kind of staid, relationship of the time. Like, you don't see any passion between her and Jeffrey, but you also don't see him doing anything that would kind of lead her to need, like, something else.
Well, I think what they were trying to do was show this immediate attraction and sexual tension that's so great that it didn't matter. Okay. But I don't think that carried through at all.
That doesn't carry on screen whatsoever.
No, it doesn't.
Like,
it doesn't.
If that's the case, then like Ralph Fiennes is a really, really good actor. But he is not right for this kind of role.
No,
if that's
he's a good-looking man too, but it's just not.
Like, this is not the kind of role. Like he doesn't portray the kind of warmth that you would need. Like you don't buy, like, say it's like someone like a George Clooney or a Matthew McConaughey or someone like that who people tend to gravitate towards.
But they're also British.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay.
You could find like Idris Elba. You could buy someone like that, right?
Yes.
Has nothing to do with being British, and the fact he's not playing a British guy. He's playing a Hungarian.
Oh, that's true.
So
that's a good point.
I mean, he's called the English patient because he's speaking in English, and it's assumed that he's English.
Yes.
And through the flashbacks, we find out, oh, he's actually this.
And he was probably in an English plane.
Yeah, well, we found out that where he's kind of at would kind of lead you to believe he's part of the war or whatever. But we find out he's a Hungarian count.
Yes.
So, throw your little British explanation out the window, lady.
Oh, I'm sorry, but this movie is super British,
it
and
really is.
I don't get me wrong. Like, I'm a big what are they called? Britophiles? Anglophile, I guess. Like, I love my Jane Austen. I love that stuff. But this movie was like just the pretentious part of being British, and it just was like, it was really dry.
It's emotionally cool.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it. Like there's nothing about this movie that's particularly bad. Like everything's proficient. But like when the side love story is far more interesting
more interesting.
Is far more interesting than the main love story with Juliette Binoche and Naveen Andrews characters.
Yeah, that is, and you feel the passion between the two of them.
Right. Like
big time.
Juliette Binoche has a passionate screen presence. If you've ever, seen, we've had her earlier on the list in The Unbearable Lightness of Being when she was very, very young.
Very young.
This movie is, probably, I think it was about 10 years later. When did
this came out in 96?
It's
about 10 years.
It's about 10 years later.
More.
So, she's got a different maturity at this point, but she still has that presence. Naveen Andrews is, like, I've always been surprised this guy didn't have more work. I mean, he was on Lost.
He was great.
So, he ain't worrying about a paycheck or anything these days, but he has real charisma on screen. And you see immediately, like, oh, yeah, why, Juliette Binoche is like, oh, hello.
Yes.
And she, even though she's had, like, a couple of heartbreaks that have already happened during the movie, like in the beginning of the movie, the guy that I think is she engaged to him?
I don't know if they were dating or engaged.
Dating or engaged, but he dies and she finds out about it, which is really tragic for her. And then her best friend dies, like, in front of her, basically.
It's sad. It's really sad.
So it's really sad. So she has this, she's kind of closed off her heart, but even with that, this man, she just can't deny, her feelings for him, and it's their chemistry is
and that whole story was way more interesting than what was going on.
Way more interesting than the main story.
And it was like you had this very dry love story, these dry characters, dry costumes, and then you're setting it in the desert. It was like, it's just really, really not. Yeah. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, this movie is filled with really good actors giving good performances. Of the performances, I think Willem Dafoe's is by far the best.
Yes.
I think he's fantastic.
He was great.
He's fantastic in this movie.
He's always good, though.
Colin Firth is a great actor who doesn't have a whole lot to do in this movie.
No, but he's still good.
He elevates what's on the page quite a bit. Because there's not a lot on the page. I mean, he is basically like, the aggrieved husband, and he's in maybe like 5 to 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
he's
in a few scenes.
You don't really get to see his real reaction to like why this decision to like do the murder-suicide thing happens. I mean, we see him kind of figure out that his wife is having an affair, and it's with this guy that he knows from their expedition. But the thing that I find the most interesting is we don't figure out why he suspects her in the first place.
We do not. We don't know.
He just
finds out.
He just kind of follows her that one day. Like why all the like it would just be like me like one day just randomly like following you to work or whatever just because like for no reason, then like all of a sudden I find out you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing.
Well, don't do that.
Apparently she's doing something she's not supposed to be doing. But I mean it just like there wasn't like a clue for him to go from what are you doing?
Maybe somebody knew and he taught. Wait.
Oh wait, the guy saw her.
Yes.
Okay.
Didn't the guy? Yes, that's
mind.
Right.
He was informed about it. Okay.
Okay. Mystery solved.
Mystery solved. This is how much we paid attention.
Yeah, it's just like really boring.
This movie is really.
So
really
how did we rank it?
So I gave this one a 54. You gave it a 50, and the list score is therefore 52. So I mean, it's kind of middle of the road.
Won Best Picture?
It did win Best Picture. I believe it won editing as well and costume design.
Costume design,
really,
guys. I went to the Banana Republic.
Yeah, the costume designer went to Banana Republic and
bought out the shelves.
And like like a Levi's outlet and bought some khakis. And this apparently wins you costume design.
Up against Attack of the Clones?
No, Attack of the Clones was a couple years later.
Oh, Phantom Menace?
No, Phantom Menace was 99. But just, I forget, there was something that year that was really, really well done in terms of costumes in this movie one.
Dumb.
Just, this is a quintessential Oscar bait movie. It's everything about it is kind of Oscar bait. You got good performances, and a kind of an adult story. It's really well done, proficiently, but it's just kind of a dull movie. The love story is not great, and it's kind of meh. So, meh. We had to revisit it for this one. It's just as boring as it was when I was, 24 years old and watched this movie. So.
I think I watched this in the theater too, but I don't remember.
But whatever.
All right, well, that's our review of The English Patient. Now you're going to want to run out and watch it. But anyway, thanks for joining us. Please leave comments if you have opinions about The English Patient, and let us know what you think. If you want to email us, please email us at ratingthelist@gmail.com. For now, we're Rating the List. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Brad.